Okay, so we are recording, and my name is Dan Stafford, and this is Christina Arapolu.
Yeah.
Did I
Go by Tina.
Tina,
You can call me
right?
Tina.
Okay, and we're both 1962 Aquarians, and Tina's on the 7th of February. I'm on the 8th of February, and we were born about 95 miles apart. Um, in the Great Lakes area. We're kind of close to Lake Michigan. And if you take a look at our charts, this is really interesting. It's because of geographic location and the time of day, and it's, you, you were what, 6 p.m.?
It was 6:37 p.m. Yeah.
6:37, and I'm 6:56 p.m. But
Yeah.
we're almost 24 hours apart.
hmm
Almost 24 hours. But when you look at our charts, you can't tell.
I
You
know
really
it's great.
can't tell. All right, so I'm going to do a little bit of share screen here, and then, oh, you have share screen disabled. You might have to jump
Oh,
into the settings over there and
okay.
enable
Oops.
that one.
Okay. Huh. Oh,
Should be in settings.
oh. Okay. Let me close this. All right. Let's see. Um. Share screen. Let's see. Uh. Share individual window. Automatically share. Huh. It's in full screen mode. So,
Yeah, no, it's got to be something to do with share screen, screen
oh,
sharing, allow
applications, when
screen
I share
share.
my screen, share all sharing options, automatically share advanced. Let me look at that.
Yeah, it might be in there.
Oh, it says limit. Oh no, that show screen border. Nope. Block all other window pop-ups.
It might be right in the settings for the call that we're on rather than the overall Zoom
Oh,
settings.
okay. Um,
I
huh.
can't tell because I'm in the participant view rather than
Right.
in
Yeah,
the
I'm hosting, but I'm not a very good host because I don't I don't know. So where is the settings part of the, wait, maybe it's here.
under participants
No.
maybe.
Okay, let's look in there. Mhm. Invite, mute all, more. Let's see. Start video. No. Yeah, I don't know. That's so weird. View gallery. In the meeting.
Let me flip over to Chrome for a second, and I'm gonna Google
Okay,
it real quick. All
sure.
right, let's see. All right, saying click on the up arrow near the screen share button in your meeting control bar. Click advanced sharing options. Click all participants.
Okay, so share screen.
You go to the share screen button, but there's an up arrow next to it,
Oh,
like
I
a
see.
little arrow, and then
Okay,
in the meeting, and then click
gotcha.
advanced sharing
Okay,
options, and then check
okay.
all participants.
Um,
Wait, that's not.
multiple participants can share. Okay, dual monitors. All right. So that should, hopefully that work.
Okay, I'm gonna find out in just a second. All right. Yeah, it's allowing me to do it, and let's see. I I think I'll just share the photos. All right. All right. So now I'm gonna have to move the zoom controls a little bit because it is blocking the controls for photos. All right.
Hmm.
There. I'm hoping this doesn't. Yeah, it's gonna show up in the recording for sure. Is there any way to minimize this? Not really. No. Okay. Oh, there, it minimized itself if I left it alone. All
That's
right.
awesome.
Well, we're given a nice little tutorial on Zoom while we're at this. Okay, we didn't know we
Sure,
were going to do
exactly.
that, but sure, it's fun. Okay,
Sure.
so yeah, I'm assuming you can see your chart
Oh
here.
yeah, that's my. I can see mine.
Yeah,
Do you have
okay.
yours up as well?
I can't put them side by side. I'm going to have to do one and then the other.
Okay.
So, yeah, all right. So I've got controls there. All right. So I'm going to zoom in a little bit here and I'm going to point a couple of things out. Now, this is a little bit trickier with Tina's chart than it is with mine um, because it doesn't have the signs. Let me see if I can back that down just a little bit. It doesn't have the signs right next to the planets, right? What we're looking at here is we have Chiron, Venus, Saturn, or sorry, Jupiter, the Sun, South Node, Mercury retrograde. You see the little R next to it, that's retrograde.
Right.
That means it appears to be moving backwards.
Yeah.
Mercury retrograde, and then Venus, and then Saturn, right? That's
Or Saturn
Jupiter.
and Saturn and Mars. Yeah.
Yeah, all right, Mars. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Venus is up here. So we got
Yeah.
Chiron,
Actually,
Venus.
my Venus is in Aquarius in the sixth house. It just didn't fit there.
Yeah, it
Um,
doesn't. It may not look like it here.
yeah.
And then over here we have Uranus opposing pretty much the whole stellium.
Right.
And then we have Pluto, I
Pluto.
think, in Virgo. And
Yeah.
then we have the North Node over here in I think that's in Leo as well.
Leo as well. Yeah.
And then the moon is in Aries over here. Now,
Yeah.
if we go down to the lower part of the chart here, and this is where I'm going to zoom just a, well, maybe not. Um, okay, and now it's going to tell you which one's where, right? So the sun's in Aquarius, moon in Aries, um, Mercury in Aquarius, Venus in Aquarius, Mars in Aquarius, Jupiter in Aquarius, Saturn in Aquarius, Uranus is over in Leo, which is exactly opposite Aquarius. Neptune's in Virgo, Pluto, or sorry, Neptune in Scorpio.
Scorpio.
Yep, Neptune
Yeah.
in Scorpio, and then Pluto is in
And
Virgo.
Virgo. Mm-hmm.
North Node is in Leo, all right?
Yeah.
And then Lilith, and that's not going to show on my chart. Chiron in Pisces.
Yeah.
Part of Fortune is in Cancer, I believe that is.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then
And then our
Virgo
ascendant.
ascendant, right?
Yeah.
In
Do you know
the
what degree
mid.
your ascendant is?
Not off the top of my head, but we're going to look
Yeah, I
in a
was
minute
curious.
because it's going to say right on my chart. All right.
Yeah.
And then your ascendant's at 5 degrees. All right, so if you look at the degrees, like here, for instance, your moon is at 1 degree 5 minutes of Aries, okay, and the sun's at 18 degrees 46 minutes Aquarius. For instance, we'll kind of compare those two between your chart and mine. All right.
Yeah.
Now I'm going to zoom back out, and you can see that there's this huge stellium in Aquarius, and then it's opposed by Uranus, which is actually the modern ruler of Aquarius. In Leo, it's actually in direct opposition. So the ruler of Aquarius is opposing the entire stellium in Aquarius. But if I recall correctly, um, Uranus is also retrograde. Yeah, take a
Yeah.
look. Everything over here that's in opposition is in
Yeah.
retrograde,
Yeah.
which is really interesting and complicates it even more. All right.
Yeah.
So now I'm going to switch over to my chart. And I thought I was switching to my chart. Let me go the other direction.
Oh, there you go.
Okay. All right. So this is my chart, and I'm going to zoom a little bit. So it doesn't have that little chart at the bottom, but if you look on here, it's got the degrees, minutes, and sign right next to the symbol. So I've got the moon at 15 degrees Aries, whereas yours was like 1 degree or a one, almost 2 degrees.
Yeah.
And mine's pretty close to 16 degrees, 15 degrees, 55 minutes. So another 5 minutes, and it would have been 16 degrees. All right. And then I
Right.
have um, my sun's at 19 degrees Aquarius, so it moved a little bit from where yours is. All right. But
Right.
the sun takes a little longer to go through a sign. The moon goes really, really fast.
Yep.
It's because of the time of day. But also note here the houses. Mine's in the sixth house, except for Mars and Saturn. Those are in the fifth house, which is exactly what's going on in your chart as well. And looks like I've got Pluto, Uranus, and the North Node all in the 12th house, which is kind of like almost in the shadows. If I remember, the 12th house is kind of like very under the radar and all retrograde. So
Yeah.
really, really interesting. And then Neptune in uh, Scorpio. I remember the tail pointing up like a little scorpion getting ready to sting. That Scorpio.
Yep. Yep.
I'm not an expert astrologer. I just know a bit about it.
Yeah.
So a lot of
Yeah.
reading. And then 9 degrees, 28 minutes. So my ascendant is 9 degrees, 28 minutes Virgo.
Oh, so
Um,
your ascendant is right on Pluto, on your Pluto. So
yeah,
Pluto is rising right at, yeah, wow. That's
yeah,
pretty
yeah.
amazing.
It's
Yeah.
within what it was at about 7 minutes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's pretty, yeah, that's intense.
yeah. And then I believe all your stellium is in fifth and sixth house, so almost identical to what I've got going on here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Crazy.
So yeah, yeah. So even though 24 hours apart because of geographic location and that we're both during the stellium in Aquarius and time of day, yeah, the charts are so close. We like to call ourselves the astrological twins or Astro-Twins.
Yeah, exactly. Well, you know what's kind of cool is that your moon is sextiling your sun Jupiter, and my moon is sextiling my Saturn Mars. I have no idea really what that means, except for I just find it interesting. I can see the patterns. I'm learning meeting. What I'll do is I'll see something and I'll go like, oh, and then I Google it and see.
Yeah, with
Um,
all these, I'm gonna stop the screen share and go back to the call. But with with all the tech certifications that I'm in the middle of right now, it's like I want to learn astrology, but it's like I can't shoehorn another thing in.
no,
Yeah. I also
no, yeah,
volunteer for Civil Air
a
Patrol.
it's a whole nother language. You know,
It
I this
is.
last year I've really delved into it, but I've been listening to a lot of podcasts and listening to yeah, just learning that way because I can just stick my earbuds in and work. And then if I don't understand something, I just let it kind of flow over me. And the next time it comes around, maybe I'll understand it, maybe I'll look it up. But yeah,
Hmm.
it's that's how I've been absorbed. That's how I absorb most things anyway. I just sort of listen to it whether it goes over my head or not and just keep letting it absorb into me while I'm doing other things.
Well,
I'm a
yeah.
multitasker. Are you a multitasker?
Oh, are you kidding? Yeah. Constantly.
Yeah.
Let me
Yeah.
see. I teach IT to veterans. I started teaching IT while I was still learning it.
Oh
Eh,
well.
Um, and then I'm still studying advanced IT certifications at the same time. Um, I'm married, so that tells you right there my home life is fairly busy. And then I also am doing Ushers of the Aquarian Age.
Mhm.
I'm
Thank you
doing the
for doing that.
well. Yeah, you're welcome. It's a labor
Yeah.
of love.
Yeah.
It is.
Yep.
Um, and then I also volunteer a bit for Civil Air Patrol and an IT for a local Civil Air Patrol squadron. And I don't
Oh,
know how many people know about Civil Air Patrol, so I'll just be real brief on that. They're a nonprofit organization that is an official auxiliary to the United States Air Force, so they have a kind of an interesting situation there, and but their mission is not in the type of military like you would expect from the Air Force, where they're there to present force in a conflict or situation. Not at all. The Civil Air Patrol is very different from that. What they do, they have three missions. They do aerospace education for the general public. They train cadets in like basic military customs, but also things like aerospace education and search and rescue, because their third mission is search and rescue. So, like if an aircraft
wow.
goes down, somewhere, it goes off radar, an emergency locator beacon goes off, or if like hikers or something are lost in the wilderness, Civil Air Patrol has like the largest civilian aircraft fleet in the world, like Cessnas, like large, small to large Cessnas, basically like the little single engine fixed
Wow.
wing airplanes that you see. And what they do is they put people on the ground doing search and people in the air doing search together, going looking for these planes or lost people and stuff like that. I know a local architect who used to be an architect in Alaska, and he was flying with the bush pilot in Alaska, and their plane went down because the pilot ran out of gas. Oops. And Civil Air Patrol is the one that found him.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
uh,
Yeah. So do
yeah.
you fly? Are you a pilot?
No, no, I wanted to be since I was a little kid, but as soon as I got
Mhm.
glasses, my parents told me, "Oh, you'll never fly anything but cargo." And of course, being a little kid, I just listened to that.
Yeah.
I didn't know any better. So, I did go in the Air Force at 17. I've mentioned that in some of the other videos, and I was working on radar in the Air Force, so in like support. So I all the
Yeah.
support positions around aviation. I also took a couple of years, 2-year vocational diploma in the early 1990s, um, for civilian aviation in aircraft electronics. So I have a vocational diploma in civilian aircraft electronics as well.
Cool.
So yeah, aircraft is in my blood. My dad's a plane
Yeah.
nut. I'm a plane nut, but he never managed to fully get his pilot's license, and I never managed to even start.
Yeah, I think when I was a kid, first, my very first I want to be when I grow up, I wanted to be an astronaut. So, do you remember?
That would be
Yeah.
number two. I ever
Do you
since
remember the moonwalk, and the whole
I
Apollo
I
thing
I
with
do.
Snoopy and yeah,
I do. I have one of major life-changing memory around that.
yeah.
Actually, we moved from Madison, Wisconsin, to a little small town in Nebraska called Genoa, Nebraska. This was 1969, and I went to second grade in Madison, Wisconsin, and I was going to go to third grade in Genoa, Nebraska. That's 1,050 people, and I had to go to summer school to be in third grade because, being my stubborn Aquarian self, I would only do the homework I felt like doing.
Right.
Yeah. Meanwhile, I was reading probably at like a seventh or eighth grade level, at least by that age. And I was just a reader, and I wanted to spend my time in books, not regurgitating stuff I'd already read. And so I was in summer school that year, and the teacher rolled out one of those carts with the little black and white TV. Do you remember those from school, where they would
Hmm.
roll out a little metal cart with the TV on it, or an overhead
Yep.
projector, etc. And she's like, you guys got to watch this. This is history in the making. And it was Neil Armstrong putting that first footprint on the moon.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow. Yep.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And I never looked down after that. I was,
Yeah, I was intrigued and I thought um that's what I wanted to be when I grew up. And nobody really told me I couldn't be that. I think I just, you know, I was sort of a little feminist at a young age and a bit of a tomboy. Um but something happened to me, and I loved to fly. That was the other thing I thought, or I could be a pilot, or I just loved anything to do with space or the sky. And then I don't know, something happened to me, maybe around 10 or 11, and maybe it went, I'm not exactly sure, but something happened, and it probably came from, there were a lot of I lived right near O'Hare, so there were a lot of plane crashes during
mm,
um yeah, during that time.
yeah.
As a kid, I just recall seeing a lot of, and so yeah, I somehow developed a fear of flying. How
That's
weird is that?
interesting because it was right around 10 years old that I got the glasses, and my parents told me I'd never be a pilot.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there is a little bit of a parallel going on there because,
Interesting.
yeah,
Yeah.
that
Because
same thing. Yeah,
yeah,
it wasn't
I
for the
became
same
fearful.
reason. It wasn't for the
Yeah.
same reason, but it was the same result
Yeah.
at the same
Interesting.
age. Interesting.
Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah. So,
So, wow.
yeah, mind slightly blown.
And then,
Yeah.
yeah, and the fear of flying is, I mean, it stayed with me through my life. Um, but I've been able to work through it. I have methods of doing what I have to do to get on a plane because I need to fly. But yeah, the joy to fly just for the joy of it is not something I do. So it and that was what I wanted to do when I was a kid. But yeah, and it's great now. I'm seeing the whole space program starting up again, which I think is
Hmm.
really kind of fun because it went away for a little while and we weren't
Have you
seeing
been
too much about.
following all the stuff going on with Starlink and with the starships down in
Not too much, but yeah,
SpaceX?
but yeah,
Oh
not
my
too much.
goodness. They're doing some really interesting stuff with Starlink. I've already talked about Starlink, I think, in one of the other videos, so I'm not going to dive into that too much. But
Yeah.
the SpaceX and their Starship that they're doing, that it's a stainless steel rocket. It looks so much like the black and white Buck Rogers sci-fi shows from when I was a kid. Did you ever see that on WGN out of Chicago, the old Buck Rogers show?
No, no,
Oh my
I wasn't
gosh.
watching that.
Oh
Yeah,
God, you're gonna have to go back and
I know.
find that.
I'll have to go back and look.
Yeah,
Yep.
I mean, their cheese
Yeah.
ball is all get out, but and they're
Yeah.
the era they
I watched
are.
Lost in Space, and
Oh
what were
sure.
some of the other shows that were
But
pretty
yeah, but
cheesy
you
too.
got to look up Buck Rogers in the 21st century.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah, it'll be fun. It'll be a little time eater, but it'll be fun. But
Yeah,
it, I swear Elon Musk must have got the design for the Starship from that show.
that's hilarious.
Um, but they've been doing really cool stuff. I mean, this is once they put it together with the super heavy booster, that's going to be the largest rocket ever built. Period.
Wow.
He's trying to get to Mars, and I don't think I don't think he's going to get stopped. I think he's going to actually do it. I think he's going to have people on Mars within a few years. I'm not going to be surprised at all if he's successful at it. They've already flown that thing up to I want to say it's like 7 or 8 miles high, and you know the
Wow.
ones they use to launch the satellites. That's a smaller one, and they land those all the time on their little ship out in the Gulf of Mexico, right? They have a ship that's like a flatbed, and the rockets come back in, and they automatically land themselves on the ship. right?
Wow, I have
After
to
they
check that
launched
out.
the
That sounds
satellite.
really cool.
Yeah, so after
So
they,
would you go? Would you go to Mars? Would you, if you got the
uh,
opportunity?
I don't know if I would or not. I'd have to think about
Yeah,
it really hard. First of
yeah,
all, my wife might have something to say about it. you know,
yeah.
so
Uh,
I think at these early stages, I don't know if I'd want to be in on that. That's really, I think space exploration, especially in the beginning, is going to be a young person's game. I mean, just from a physical perspective, we're
Absolutely.
getting so close to 60. I don't know if it's a wise move.
Right.
No, if we were
Yeah.
20, 20, 25, 30, yeah, I'd be hard pressed to say no.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
but the other thing is I don't know how many of you know this, but I'm like 6'6" and 340 pounds.
Wow.
So
Wow. I
I'm
didn't
not,
realize you were that tall. Oh my
yeah.
gosh. Wow.
So,
Yeah.
uh, the spaceship people probably wouldn't want to squeeze me in.
No.
Because for them, space and weight are at a premium.
Right.
You know that with the interest that you have, space and weight are at a premium. That'd be like me trying to fit in a submarine. It just doesn't go over well, you
Right.
know. And that's the same problem I have flying commercial aircraft now. I mean, with what they've done in the last 15 years to airliners, it's horrible. I mean, I feel like a sardine packed in there, and I mean,
Yeah.
and it's so tight. I have to get an aisle seat if I'm going to get on an
Yeah.
airplane.
Or pay the extra for the extra leg room or whatever they do now.
Well,
Yeah.
I don't know because if I'm sitting in one of those seats in like a regular row and somebody puts a seat down in front of me, they're basically going to break my legs because
Mhm.
I just don't. The bones from the knee to the hip are just too long for that space. I can't
Right.
literally can't fit.
Wow.
So there's just no way. And so I don't do, as much as I love aircraft, I don't
Yeah.
fly unless I'm going over the ocean. I just don't anymore. I go Amtrak if I'm going to travel
Do you?
cross
I
country.
love Amtrak.
Yeah,
I
except they took the diner car away.
Oh, they did? Because of
Yes.
COVID?
No, not because of COVID, because of cheap. mm, Well,
Really?
you know the crowd
Yeah.
that's been behind those kind of cuts. I mean, I
Yeah.
don't like to wax political on these, but that
Right.
was irritating because the dining
Yeah.
car was one of the best things about it. It was so good.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
but yeah, Amtrak was, like we did that like at least 3 times cross country. We took that Southwest Chief from Chicago to LA,
Yeah.
about
Yeah.
three different times.
We did the Portland to Chicago a couple years ago. Yeah, it was fun.
Yeah,
It was good.
I wanted to do that one that goes from down here by Oceanside all the way up to Seattle and back sometime along
Yeah.
the coast, like what is it, the Starliner or whatever that goes
Yeah.
up and down the coast.
Yeah.
That would be fun.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll
I
go
like
spend
trains.
some. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Oh yeah, they're cool.
Trains are great.
Yeah,
So, yeah. So, so, so what else? The like sixth house, that's
work, 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 work,
work,
work,
work,
work,
work.
work,
Yeah, for
work,
sure.
work.
I'm a farmer, so that's all
A
I
lot
do.
of work. Yeah,
Yeah. And any if you're an entrepreneur or whatever, you work a lot. Teachers work a lot. Um, yeah, we're just our there's no border between. That's why whenever we're doing meetings and things like that, or we're getting a schedule together, I'm like, I'm flexible because my work life and home life just blend. So
yeah,
it doesn't, there's no set time that I work, this worked out good. We just had a deadline. I had an order to fill and kind of made it like by 2 o'clock. And so I had this time free. It worked out really good. Um, and then, and then after I'm done, I'll probably go back to work.
Well,
We're
when
working.
I get done with here, I'm going to be heading over to my Civil Air Patrol squadron. I've got this speakerphone to attach to the PC for Zoom conferences for those members that can't make it in when the meetings are going on. They'll at least be able to
Cool.
dial in and actually hear. So we've got a new squadron commander, so I'm going to go over and sit down with him, kind of go over some of the IT stuff, and then we're going to test out this little speaker phone and see how it does. So yeah, I've got other things to do too.
Yeah, isn't it? I
Yeah.
know. It's like it's always something. Yeah, I actually gotta plant some seeds. So, and it's interesting. I think that when I became a farmer, which has been a while, almost 20 years now, there's something that I think I was drawn to the earth, just sort of this groundingness of, maybe it's the Virgo that was bringing me there. But yeah, I feel like I was just drawn to um, be there. But what's happened is like what I love about it is it's there's a structure and not a structure. There's like I have um, you know I have deadlines to meet, even though I have no structure in my but the nature doesn't wait for you. It's like spring is
Right.
here,
When it's time to
time to plant.
plant, it's time to plant. When
Yeah,
it's
when you got
time
to
to
plant.
harvest, it's time to harvest. And
Yeah, I mean,
if
you get these windows, and I'm always pushing the envelope. I'm really good at that. But you get these windows of time, and then there's better time depending on how you're gonna get. But it's been a good structure for me to have that like ability to be flexible and to have that looseness, but also to be you know given some sort of boundaries because because
because
without
if because if you don't, it's just gonna flop.
yeah, that's that Aquarian all over the place kind of thing. So I need to have that, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah,
Plus, I
my
just love it. I love farming. I love to be outside. I like getting dirty. I'm a kid that was always playing in the dirt and outside, and yeah, still that
yeah.
way.
I had I had quite a bit of like stuff where I was like mowing lawns, trimming trees, that kind of stuff when I was like a young kid. I used to get paid my allowance a little bit extra for mowing the yard, and then I had a job a couple of once in high school. I worked for a tree and lawn service in Dallas, Texas. Now, I started off high school in Madison, Wisconsin. I started going to the public school in Madison East High, and then for like the second half of 10th grade. I went to an alternative school called Malcolm Shabazz, and it was set up way much more like a college.
Oh well.
And that was cool. But then in that spring, my mom decided that she was going to move to Dallas for work, or well, Texas, anyways. And she was an apprentice in the carpenters union, and jobs were kind of tight around the Madison area. So she moved us down to Texas, got signed up with the union down there. We spent a few, part of the summer in Houston, and then we moved up to Dallas, and I went through 11th grade up to my birthday in Garland High School in Garland, Texas, which is like a suburb of Dallas, basically. And
Wow.
yeah, so I went from a really progressive high school in Madison to a really, cowboy
It's,
environment.
wow.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
That
a
had to
little
be.
culture shock. Yeah,
Yep.
and then like 2 weeks after my 17th birthday, bye bye, dropped out, went to the Air Force, and went to boot camp.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Were your parents together or were they divorced?
Um, no, they were divorced. They split up when I was 3.
Oh
Say
wow.
like 3 years
Okay.
old.
I was 6 when my parents split up. You know, I thought I was the only, like we were the first divorced family ever. At 6, I was like, oh, I didn't know what it was, and none of my friends parents were that. But
See,
yeah,
you were a
so
childhood feminist, and my mom was a 20-something feminist.
yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
I kind of
Wow,
grew up with that in the background. You know what I mean?
sure. Oh yeah,
Um, yeah, mom was. I never knew anything different. I mean, because I just grew up with those kind of values, especially since mom and dad split when I was like three-ish. Yeah, I mean, back then the kids went with mom.
yeah,
Period. I
exactly.
mean,
Yeah,
there
we stayed.
was.
Yeah, we stayed with. I stayed with my mom until I was 12 or 13, and then I moved with my dad. I moved to the East Coast, and I lived with my dad. and that was interesting. So the interesting thing too is my mom's a Pisces and my dad's a Virgo, and I never realized how opposite they were. But uh, I think I was very supported by my father in like anything that I wanted to do. Like he just was very. My mom was more strict. She was an educator. She was a teacher, and I was not a great student. So, and I was sort of all over the place and very kind of hard to, you know,
Well, it's kind of
control.
boring going over the same stuff over and over and over and over again.
Yeah. Yeah.
You
I was a
know?
lot. I was a lot for my mom. I think I was just too, I always thought I was too much. Like not that I was, some people are like, oh, I was never enough. I always felt like I was too much, and I was too much for my mother. Uh, yeah. So now my mom and we're great. She's just, she's still around and she's in Chicago and yeah, it's,
Nice.
but it's been, yeah. So that's, and it's interesting because I thought for a long time that my moon was in Pisces. I think I had I think I thought I was born, somehow I thought I was born in the morning, 6:37 a.m., which put my moon in Pisces, which gave me a whole different, like, it just didn't resonate with me. For some reason I just
Yeah.
didn't feel that. And then when I discovered my moon was in Aries, um, and 1 degree Aries, so it's like a very, like, just this spark of air, of or sorry, spark of fire with all the air that I have. I
Right.
heard you say something in your interview about how you have a very long fuse with a bomb attached. I was
Yeah,
just
pretty
started laughing.
much.
I'm like, yep, yep. Yeah,
Yeah.
it takes a lot to get me to that point, but I do. And it's usually fast and short and then I'm over it.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I guess if I don't have the explosion, it tends to hang around and linger a little bit longer. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's the case, but the explosions are so bad if it gets to that point, I just never let myself get there anymore.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, no,
I
it's
try
not
not
worth
to.
it. It's
Nope.
just not worth it. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'd rather
But
the
I agree with you too with the Aries moon has been my driving force. It's like that takes that sixth house stellium to another level.
it
Um
does because it gives you an ability it when you've got to be into something it allows you to be driven in one direction and it's really hard.
yeah.
I don't know about you, but I would guess it's pretty much the same for you. It's very hard for me to narrow my focus down to one thing, but when I have to, I'm like a laser beam drilling it.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, and when life
So my
demands it,
partner, my partner Kaz, yeah, he sees me all over the place and he walks by and he'll just say, focus. And he knows exactly because I'm so scattered. But I do, yeah, but when I do focus, I'm like a laser beam. And that's how I get things done. I can hyper focus as well. And yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
So I gotta ask along those lines, right? Were you a
Okay.
big reader as a kid?
I wasn't a big reader. And this is kind of crazy. I wasn't a big reader, but one thing I loved was I loved to be read to. Like my dad used to read us. Well, he used to read us a lot of Stephen King type books, and then but he would read to us, and my mom would read to us when we were little. And I just remember I love being read to. I love listening to things. And so I'm, audiobooks and podcasts and things like that. I absorb things in that way much more than I do reading. I always had a hard focusing problem with sitting and reading myself. But if I was being read to, I could just go into my imagination and
So it sounds like you're more of an auditory learner. Yeah.
yeah. Although but visual, I'm both probably. I'm both. I'm a visual learner, and I'm auditory as well.
Yeah, for
So
me it's like reading is the best. I'm not always the greatest listener. I have trouble staying
okay.
focused, and I also have a little bit of minor hearing issue that's related to, back when I was in the Air Force, my one ear I've lost a little bit of hearing in. The other one's fine, but I mean it still impacts you. Like for instance, well, I don't want to sidetrack into that, but I'm way more visual when it comes to learning. If I can get my hands on an old school paper book, that's the best way for me to learn. And
Yeah.
for me, if it's anything with any kind of a story or narrative to it, it's like watching a movie in my head when I'm reading. And I'm just like zoned right in. I mean, I'm in
Yep.
there and I'm like in the action kind of,
Yeah.
and I'm visualizing it in my head as I'm going through reading it. And
Yeah.
I mean, I had times like when I was a kid when my sister was trying to get yeah, I mean, you had to be like yelling right in my, huh? What? Because I was there in
Yep.
it, you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
so that's what I was talking about in one of the other videos when I was a kid in school. The teachers could never figure out how in the heck I was like acing tests and getting high 90s and stuff and 80s in math, and like, is this guy cheating or what? And they tested me over and over and over again. It's like, no, I read the books. Boom.
Yeah.
First
Yep.
month of school, I read all the books, and now I had to wait a whole another year.
My mom would have liked to have you as her son instead of me.
Well, she might have gotten around to getting me the next year's books next month.
Yeah. Yep. Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah. We
because
had. Yeah. Yeah. I was the kid that was drifting out the window, couldn't pay attention in class, and I was so. And I wonder. I still think that's my. So that's that Neptune squaring directly on my Mercury.
no, you and I are very much alike in that, because as soon as
Yeah.
I was done with the books, that was me. I was daydreaming like big
Yeah.
dreams,
Yeah. That was the term they used back then, was daydreamer.
yeah.
She's a daydreamer, and that was written on all my report cards. She's been or whatever on my like things sent home to mom.
I'm pretty
Tina was
sure
daydreaming again.
I'm pretty sure there's a lot of that in my
Yeah.
report cards too, if they still exist
Yeah.
anywhere.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was very much like that. And what I think a lot of people don't realize about that particular thing, about that whole daydreaming thing, is that harnessed in the right way, that is kind of like a superpower, because that
Oh,
means you have very powerful ability to visualize,
yes.
right?
Yeah.
In great detail, right?
Yes.
And that's something a lot of other people don't recognize, because they see it as daydreaming, but they have no idea what you're daydreaming about. You
Yeah.
know, for instance, you could be daydreaming about, oh, let's see, how can I change the entire environment of the planet, or something like that. You
Yeah,
know,
yeah, definitely. At that time, I don't know what I was daydreaming about, but just probably thinking, I don't know, who knows? Who knows where my head was? But I still daydream probably. I'm problem solving, and I may have been doing that as well back then. So it's like I'm very um, problem. oriented. So,
Right.
in fact, I actually enjoy it. Sometimes, meditation is very difficult for me to empty my mind, but what I do is I use it to um, to move anything out except for focusing on a situation or a problem to come up with solutions, and I can sit still and do that.
Yeah, that's
So
like me in the morning trying to get ready for work. I've got a time clock to punch, and I'm sitting there kind of saying to finding myself drifting off into this like real in-depth daydream about this or about that. You know what I mean? And I'm like, wait, this clock's gonna jump if I don't move. Yeah, I've got to
exactly.
snap myself back.
Exactly. Yeah,
And
having that structure is good for people like you and I, to, know that, yeah, we got to move. And otherwise, I can fritter the time away like nobody's business.
yeah,
So,
unfortunately,
yeah.
the world hasn't figured out how to harness that skill. Not
Yep.
yet.
Oh,
Or we haven't.
yeah, we haven't. Yep. Yep. So, yeah. So
Yeah.
those kids out there, I know I'm fascinated. And I think part of my fascination with the kids being born right now too, that were just born during the stellium that just happened in February.
Mhm.
Um, One reason I have no grandchildren at this time. I have a child. I have one son. I don't have any grandkids. And
Exactly the same. One son, no grandkids.
yeah, wow, wow. How old's your son?
30. He
How
just
old is
turned
he?
30 last June.
Okay. Yeah. So I actually, when you were going to the military, I was a mom. So I had Buddy when I was 16. So I was an early young mom. And then yeah. So yeah. So anyway, I'm really fascinated by these kids being born because I'm thinking, you know, I may never be a grandmother, but I'm like kind of I want to be a grandmother. Not necessarily to my own children, but maybe to guide other kids, other people's kids. And that's what I heard too, that Aquarius is from another astrologer had said that Aquarius is other people's children, so and us having Saturn and Mars in our fifth house, which is children and fun, you know, and what else is it?
I don't know. I'm not good on the houses. That's what I know the sixth
Yeah,
house
yeah. So,
because
so
yeah, how could I
yeah,
not? But
I know the sixth house pretty well. I'm also obsessed with health and nutrition and things like that. I've always been sort of um, in that realm as well. But the fifth house, I can't say I denied myself fun. I've had a pretty good time most of my life. Um, but what I think is really funny is that my Saturn and Mars are on the in the same degree, so they're both at the four degrees of Aquarius, and I kind of liken that sort of like driving with the brakes on. so so um, yeah, I actually had an experience coming down. I was coming down off. I went to a friend's house and there was snow up there. She's sort of higher elevation than me, and I was on my way back down, and it was a little slippery, and I just drove the whole way down on my brakes, and I was like, yeah, Saturn Mars conjunction, and uh, and that's what that reminded me of. But but I also feel like um, yeah, that there's this sort of this attraction to um, I don't know, somehow giving these kids a little something that we didn't. Uh, yeah, I don't know.
I I
And
I
who
don't know
knows?
for
Maybe they'll never find it. There's probably people that will never find this, but the curious ones or the astro curious ones might come looking, you know.
they might. They might. I mean, by the time they're in their 20s, we're going to be in our 80s.
Right.
And from what I understand, there's another Aquarian stellium coming in 80 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
In
So
80 years from now.
there'll be like a third wave. Yeah.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah. So
Wow.
that's pretty fascinating. That hasn't been talked about much, but I mean
No.
it's a little ways down the road.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
still, I don't know. I like looking forward. I like looking back. I actually, since I've discovered astrology and I've been able to play with my chart a little bit, going back to a few years and then seeing what was happening then, going forward, like what is going to happen in the future. I feel like it's a time machine and it's very
That's
cool.
cool. That's cool. I'd like to see some videos of you doing that actually at some point. That would
Yeah,
be really cool. Maybe with an astrologer to say, "Hey, look at this," or "Hey, look at that."
yeah, you know what? What I want to do is get some astrology software. I want to see how much it costs, but I'm thinking about getting some astrology software because you can click through a little bit faster than on some of these websites. But yeah, I've kind of going forward and seeing what's happening. Um, but I've gone backwards a lot, and to see like different transits, like
Hmm.
if we're having a transit now, kind of look back what was happening the last time we had that transit or what was happening when I was a kid when we had a similar transit. So that's been really fun and fascinating and enlightening for me, sort of.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'd love to do that. It's just like TikTok, where do I fit it in?
exactly. I know. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep. It's a distraction for sure.
Oh,
So,
well, I'm not going to be worried about what am I going to do if I ever get to retire. And
yeah.
notice I say if I ever get to.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
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 But yeah, that would be really interesting to see. And one of the things when you were talking about that time machine thing and looking into the future and into the past, I almost think I got this from reading Linda Goodman's Sun Signs back in the late 70s. Because I read that book like when I was in high school in Madison, probably in my freshman year, and I think I still have it
Yeah.
actually, the same one.
That
Uh,
was the first book I read too, astrology book. Yeah.
yeah, and if I remember right, there was something in there. If it wasn't in there, it was in something else that I read about Aquarius right around the same time frame. But from what I remember, they were saying that Aquarians love anachronisms. They love things that are out of their own time period.
Interesting.
Things from the future, things from the past, and I find myself the same thing. I'm kind of bored with the cars that are around now, but you give me the ones from 50 years ago or the ones like the Cybertruck that are coming in about 2 or 3 years, they're like
Yeah.
both super cool,
Yeah.
or
Yep.
antique sailing ships and the Starship rocket. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? I like
Totally. I
yes.
totally resonate with that. Yep.
Yeah, or
Yeah.
like give me a typewriter and let me turn it into a USB keyboard while I'm at it.
Yep.
You know,
Yeah.
that
True.
kind of stuff. I have a fascination with like old wind-up clocks, for instance. Things that don't require electricity or batteries.
Yeah.
Uh, for that matter, this watch that I'm wearing here, I got this thing at the antique store. This is a 1980s Seiko auto winder. So you just shake it for a couple of minutes in the morning and a couple of minutes in the evening, and it runs. It
Oh, wow.
doesn't need any batteries. And I plan on never having anybody ever open it up to play with it because I think it'll never work again. Yeah, but I got it at the local antique mall. And what's cool about this one being in California is the days of the week, it has both English and Spanish days of the week. Right now,
Oh,
well,
wow.
right now it's saying Sabado, um, which means that I haven't paid real attention to what day it's set on. I'm more, or date. It's too hard because I have a hard time reading it most of the time, with all the fun with your eyes as you get a little older. but
Yeah.
but
Totally.
but yeah, it's really cool that way because for part of the day it will say it in Spanish and part of the day it will say it in English. Yeah, so it's probably a rather unique old antique watch.
Yeah. Yeah. So
But
yeah, I like antique stores as well, and I like old things, old houses. I've lived in old houses most of my life. Like this house was built.
remodeling a lot.
Yeah, we're always yeah. I've remodeled and I've yeah. And then I've
I've
lived
had
in
a
houses that
lot of
were
that in my
already
life.
yeah
A lot
yeah.
there's another parallel too because I've had a lot of that in my life. When I was 16, when we were in Houston, I got a job for a while as an apartment maintenance kind of guy, but I was doing like the yard work and a little bit of apartment maintenance. And then I went into tree and lawn work. But then later, when I was in my mid 20s, I wound up doing apartment maintenance again. And my mom, being a carpenter, she was remodeling houses when I was like 18, 19.
Your
You
mom was
know,
a carpenter.
my mom was the first journeyman carpenter in the state of Wisconsin, first
That's
female
awesome.
journeyman carpenter in the
I
state of
love it.
Wisconsin. Yeah,
I love it. Yeah.
and so she did stuff like bridge crew. She helped build Union Station in Dallas.
Wow.
Yeah, stuff like that. And of course, some of that rubbed off. And we have ancestors from Ireland who were carpenters for hundreds of years. We found out later. Um,
My son is a carpenter. Yeah.
that's awesome. But
Yeah.
so yeah,
And my
lots of
grandfather was as well.
apartment
Yeah.
maintenance and remodeling and stuff like that. In between the technology stuff too. So yeah, I mean, I've been fascinated with electricity because when I was a little kid, um, I I crawled under an ironing board in the basement when I was a little kid. Like I must have been two and a half, something like that. And mom was ironing down in the basement, and she was ironing something big because it was hanging down over the side, so she didn't see me crawl under there. And so damp concrete basement floor, and she went upstairs to answer the door, and I was trying to get out from under there, and the cords were like draped over the ironing board, right? And I'm trying to figure out how to get out from under there, and I don't figure there's any way I can get out of there without yanking the cord and pulling that iron down on me. And I know it's hot, and I'm young enough where I understand that if you unplug the iron, it cools down. But I'm not young and old enough to understand that it doesn't do it instantly. It takes time. So I'm trying to unplug this cord and reach up and put my fingers near the iron and see if it's cool yet. Stuff. And of course, at one point or another, I got my finger stuck in there between the prongs on the extension cord, like
Oh,
that. So I had the Ben Franklin experience, and I have been fascinated with electricity ever
wow.
since.
Wow. So you were two when that happened.
Like two and a half, two and a
You know,
half.
I should find out what age. I had an accident when I was about that age. I don't remember what happened. I'm sure they told me, but just pictures. I had stitches in my I gashed my forehead open and had stitches and a big bandage on like Christmas pictures and stuff. So I may have been two or close to three if it was around Christmas. So yeah, it'd be interesting to see, you know, that something like that because apparently it was traumatic enough for, you know, my parents at least. I don't
Well,
recall.
I'm sure.
Yeah,
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 yeah.
yeah.
So, but yeah, I definitely had the Ben Franklin experience, struck by
Wow.
lightning. and
No kidding.
and so I've been fascinated with electricity ever since,
Yeah.
and I've learned quite a good bit about it, and that's led to me being all interested in electronics, and I picked up residential electrical a couple of different times, once in high school. My mom was remodeling this old farmhouse we lived in around Madison, and and I opened an outlet because it wasn't working right, and I already knew some stuff about electrical back then. And I looked in there, and her boyfriend had been putting the outlets together with Scotch tape. And you know that's not right. No, that's not right. So my mom goes and buys a textbook, practical electrical wiring, and hands me the textbook. She says, "Here, Dan, read this and wire the house." So I did.
Oh, wow. Wow.
Yeah, I was 15.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, yeah, fix the wiring. Yeah, okay, sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I did and stuff and that, and then all the electronics and stuff like that. So yeah, electricity's been in my blood since I was 2.
That's interesting. Wow. Yeah. So I didn't, I kind of, I mean, I took some electrical classes because I'm a, I was a film major. I
Right?
went to Columbia College for film.
That's
Of course,
awesome.
didn't do anything with my degree. And I worked on a project for a couple years that never came to fruition. And then, um, and I loved gardening. I loved, I think my love for planting and gardening came with my mom. She would let us plant seeds in the yard. She was a school teacher, so she was off in the summertime. So I got to, I don't know, I just took to it and I loved it. I had a garden when I was a young mom for a little bit, but that was time consuming. A lot of weeds grew, and then I got back into it. I think during my second marriage, I had a yard and I started just going crazy. I just couldn't get enough of it. So then after that, I actually went and homesteaded. Um, I homesteaded I was fascinated. So I lived in this life where I was married to somebody who was, and it's interesting because I was never into um, uh, technology, but I was married to somebody who was an executive at a IT company. So I think that's kind of interesting that uh, that connection. But when that marriage ended, I moved out to St. Charles area and
St. Charles, like out on the Fox River.
yeah, yeah,
Oh yeah.
I bought an 1850 farmhouse and an acre of land and I homesteaded for a while. Because when I was married, I was fascinated. I used to read Countryside magazine like cover to cover and I couldn't wait till it came in because I was fascinated by people who lived off the land, or they were raising a family of five for $8,000 a year or
Side
whatever.
note,
It was
Mother
just
Earth news.
crazy. Huh? Yeah, and they just sort of yeah, just lived off the land, and I thought that was really cool. So I tried it, and of course, I didn't just live off the land, but I had
Mhm.
a yeah, I picked up some skills and loved it, and then but I wanted more, so I ended up working at a farm. I volunteered at a farm and then worked at a couple farms in Illinois, and just decided this is what I want to do. I want to have my own farm, and
That's
um,
awesome. I've
yeah,
always like had this like in the back of my head kind of like fantasy of having like a mad scientist lab out on a farm somewhere. Like
right,
both. And
yeah,
and my wife says, "Yeah, in your mind you're a farmer."
yeah, exactly,
You
exactly,
know,
yeah,
but I never focused in on that side of things. So it's interesting for me. It's like one of those little nebulous things that I'm fascinated by, but haven't really been able to do. And for you, it's like been your life. And
yeah.
that's really
I
cool.
just yeah, it was interesting because I thought communications and film, and I loved that too. I loved sort of being behind the scenes of the camera. Um, I loved editing. That was to me very fun. Very much like um, uh, weeding and pruning are very much like editing to me.
I would say so. I've
Yeah,
edited podcasts before, audio editing, not video, but I mean, I've done some video editing too, a little bit for work here and there, very, very amateur, but I've done some podcast editing too, and I know exactly what you mean. It's like trying to
yeah,
prune this out or prune that out and stuff.
yeah.
It's fascinating stuff, but it's also very time consuming.
Yes, it's very time consuming. So
Yeah.
I made a decision. I figured I would do one for a hobby and one for, a career. I don't know. I just sort of gravitated toward farming, and it's it's an addiction. It's just a really sick addiction. So we can't stop. We don't know how to stop. Um, but yeah, so we're here on the land. We'll probably be here for a while because it's not necessarily lucrative enough to think about retiring. Um, unless we just the probably when we sell our farm, hopefully the land prices will still be high. Oregon's been okay because all the people move from California to retire in Oregon, and they keep our land prices good. Southern Oregon.
Yeah, I've
Yeah,
been hearing a lot of the moves in California have been from the coast out to the Inland Empire, like where I'm at, right on the other side of that small Santa Ana mountain range that's just off the coast.
yeah,
Yeah, because at least in this part of California, we have the Santa Ana Mountains, which are like maybe about 6,000 feet at the highest. So they're not super tall mountains, but they're still mountains.
yeah.
And between us and the coast, literally, I think it's like 15 miles as the crow flies from here to the coast, but there's a mountain range between us
Oh,
and it,
right. Exactly. That's how
right?
we are too. Yeah,
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 so. Um, yeah, and so people have been moving away from big cities on the coast out to the Inland Empire, which is what they call this big valley that's between us and the bottom end of the Sierra Nevada range that's over there on to the east of us. Those
right.
mountains are pretty big.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So
So big.
that's been going on a lot too in California. So they talk about all this migration out of California, and there's been some, but it's not really overall, not so much
Yeah,
like a net loss in population, but the population inside of California is really shifting where in California they're living. They're moving into the Central Valley because it's much more reasonably priced compared to the coast. They can't afford the
yeah.
coast anymore. And
Yeah,
so,
we get the retirees for the most part. We're getting the retired folks that which were awesome. When I had my farm stand, it was great when, we get some Bay Area folks to retire out here because the locals would look at my prices and go, "Oh, you know, that's just too expensive." And the people come from the Bay Area and they go, "Oh my God, you're so cheap." It was great. I loved it.
yeah, that works out
So
good.
yeah, they're like, wow, everything's so cheap here. I'm like, okay. Yeah, so and needless to say, we closed our farm stand out of what I call lack of interest, but probably just we're just in the wrong location. I had this dream of, like, I was thinking, sort of, the I don't know, I just had a different thought of, I live in rural America, and we also live in an area where um, it's a big farming community, but we're not attached to a big city, so we don't have that, um, you know. And there's, then I'm in a sort of a little bit of an economically depressed community.
Well, it's
It was just
rural.
a,
Yeah,
yeah,
it's
yeah,
it's rural. It's not urban,
yeah,
and it's not even suburban, probably, and that's a
no,
very different mindset. And I've lived in both.
yeah,
I've lived in both, and so have you, for that matter. I
yeah,
mean, living around Chicago and then moving out to a real rural area. Yeah, I mean, I grew up in Beloit, which at that time was 35,000 people. I've lived in a town in Nebraska was 1,050 people. I've lived in Dallas,
right,
Chicago, Denver, and uh, what's another, really big. Well, I think those are the three really big ones that I've lived in. I mean, Chicago, I lived out way out in Plainfield and worked in the Loop.
wow,
And
yeah,
then
yeah,
yeah,
that's all,
and Dallas is big. Denver's pretty big. I wouldn't
yeah,
put Denver on a par with Dallas or Chicago though. I mean, Dallas, Chicago, LA, and New York, those four are on a par.
yeah,
And then Denver, I would say, like, is second string. You know, That, big. It's a big city, but not not on a par with like Chicago, New York, or
Right.
L.A.
Yeah.
or Dallas. Those are
Yeah.
really the four really, really, really big cities in the country. And I've
When
been
did when did you move to the West Coast?
January of 15.
Okay.
Yeah. So um we have two granddaughters out here. My wife's son moved out here. He's a patent attorney. His wife is a pharmacist. They both went to school around the Chicago area, and then they moved out here. And both their daughters were born out here, so we moved out here to be close to the granddaughters, but not too close. We're there in Orange County, which is like on the other side of the mountains. So they're about an hour and 15, hour and 20 minutes away. So we can spend time, but and everybody has their own lives too. And
Nice.
then my niece and her husband are up around Fort Bragg. They just bought like a 60-room hotel in Fort Bragg
Nice.
in the fall, and along with a partner, and they're slowly remodeling it and stuff. And his parents own a couple of small hotels up in Oregon, along the Oregon coast, somewhere between Portland and the California line. I don't know exactly where, but up there. So, um, so I got a little bit of family out this way,
Yeah.
and that's the grandkids were what drew us out here.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That
and
that makes sense.
And I've got to say, if that does ever happen for you, however it happens, grandkids are cooler than bow ties.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
a
Well, that.
Doctor Who reference, by the way.
Oh, that's great. Yeah. Too funny.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. Grandkids are kids are awesome. Just kids are great. Yeah. So,
yeah.
um, yeah. So how's the Saturn transit's been treating you?
So far, I mean, it's really just been all about the pandemic, really, and what it's
Right.
done to the environment I'm in at work and school.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's Yeah,
Yeah.
I haven't personally been sick, but what's really odd is I feel like out of sync with everybody because so many people have been stuck home during all
Yeah.
this lockdown stuff. It's like almost like an enforced vacation, but with no income, you know.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
and for me, I've had to go to work the whole time. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm still going. They have us going into school. The students are remote, but we're in school every day. You
Wow.
know, they don't want us working from home. They want us in the office. They're little old school that way, and I can understand why.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. I
it's
think we feel lucky too. We've had work, but I mean, we don't, we social distance anyway, and we wash our
oh yeah,
hands a lot anyway. So it was all, you know,
hand
nothing, I mean,
sanitizer
almost
everywhere.
like
Yeah.
nothing changed. I had a bit of a stressful year. 2019 was a real stressful year for me. 2020 was actually, I almost felt guilty that I actually reconnected with my farm. I had like some really good, I don't know, just had a really positive changes that happened for me personally. So, the end of the year, I lost my stepfather to COVID. That was very,
Oh,
tragic and hard for my
sorry.
mom. Yeah, yeah, that was hard. But as far as like my day to day, and of course, worrying about other people, thinking about other people, and thinking about what's going on in the world. But personally, I had a pretty smooth year last year. This year, so I was prepping for this, for the Saturn return, and that's actually what got me into listening to astrology and seeing what they were predicting about 2020. And so I started delving on. I wanted to know more and more and more. Um, but I see that, like, Saturn is coming in. It's not just our Saturn return, and a Jupiter return, but we're like Saturn comes in and returns at other people's chart. It's like when Saturn comes home, it comes home and talks to all our planets. So now we're getting ready for us. Saturn's going to hit Mercury. I don't know. I have no idea what that's going to be like, but apparently when Saturn, we talked about this, when Saturn is on our Mercury, it's going to be squaring that second square to Uranus in Taurus, which is a lot of the astrologers are talking about. That's in June, which is also, it's going to form a T square too with our Neptune. We'll see, you know. So anyway, what I've done is that I've decided to get ready for Saturn. You know, is that I've picked up some good rituals and habits and things like that. So for the I've been sort of eating, like I started eating a little better. I pretty much eat really good anyway, but you know, I kicked it up a notch, started like a little bit of a ritualistic workout program and things like that. So during my Saturn return. And then now I'm going to force myself to do some writing, you know, journal writing and things like that for my for my Mercury. And then, so for each of my planets, I'm kind of starting something that I think Saturn would like, that would benefit me in some way. That's where I'm crossing my T's, dotting my I's, because I almost feel like this is where my head's at. I feel like Saturn is here, is coming through right now, getting us ready. I kept thinking, oh, it's getting us ready for something, you know, you move into your next stage of life or whatever. But right behind Saturn, as soon as Saturn leaves Aquarius, Pluto's entering for the next 20 years. And Pluto is just like all about transformation. And you and I are Plutonian. You are really Plutonian because of, well, I was told I was Plutonian. I'm assuming it's because it's near my ascendant. The Pluto's near my ascendant. But you're like, yours is right on your ascendant. So I think that there's some just some interesting things that that are coming. And I feel like Saturn's sort of like the teacher coming in and prepping you for what's for the transformation that's coming. Anyway, I'm excited. And I'm reading, I want to learn more about Pluto at this point. I'm sort of obsessed with Pluto. It's my new obsession. So,
That's probably not a bad thing. And right now, my obsession is my next IT cert. So, I mean, that's where
yeah,
Saturn's
also true.
putting me. You know, I'm working full time as a teacher and trying to get that next IT certification. And I've got a deadline. I've got a hard deadline because my very first IT cert is going to expire in May, and in this one, if I get it before then, it automatically re-ups the early one because it's the same certification authority and it's considered a higher level. And so if I get this one, that other one falls under it and automatically stays re-upped. And then I just have to keep this one, right? And then the next one after that, it's going to do the same to both of these. But right now, it's like the very first one I got in 18 is good for 3 years, and 3 years is coming up in May, and I better get this one before.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
that's where Saturn's pushing me right
Yeah,
now.
exactly. Well, I know exactly. I've got stuff like we're starting a new business this year. Well, we started a new business a couple years ago, but we're launching it this year. And then I have a lot of, you know, there's a lot of regulations in that industry, and so I got to learn all that stuff, and I've got to focus and stuff. But I'm very distracted at this moment with astrology right now. So, but I'm trying to, and I wonder, like, whenever I'm distracted by something I always let it go. I mean, I follow it because it somehow may meld with what I'm doing. So,
So one of the other things I remember reading a long time ago is that one of the career fields um, that is suited to Aquarians in general is astrology. You know, I remember reading a list, a long list, and that's one of the career fields that's suited to Aquarians. And in us in particular, I'm feeling drawn to astrology again because, um, but my way of that being expressed is doing this project with the rest of
yeah,
you.
yeah,
You know,
yeah.
I mean, if that's not about astrology, what's it about?
Right, right.
you know,
I'm not,
so
I don't think I'll, yeah, I don't think I'll like learn, I don't see myself learning astrology to do charts, for other people or something like that. But I feel like it can be tied into what I'm doing somehow. And also, in just I don't know, getting to know you guys, I mean, I've been part of the 62 Aquarian group for, I don't know, well, 11 years, I guess, since 2009. I think I joined it. And I like post a little bit here or there. I'll like somebody's post, but I haven't been very active in it.
I
Um,
think I've been in there about like maybe 3 years, four,
yeah,
something like
yeah.
that, and it's been the same way too. But now all of a sudden it's like boom.
We, I know we've exploded. And you know what I think is really awesome? It feels like with that group, how we, our group is that we would come out during Aquarius season and we were all really
Under
verbal and
another
really active
stellium.
and sharing and this and that and everything. And then,
Oh,
and
you
then
mean
it would move
before
into
this year?
Pisces and then we'd all go underground again for the rest of the year. And I
Right.
feel like I'm so happy that we're kind of like coming out. And I think part of it is that there's so much activity still in Aquarius that we're just, there's so much to absorb. But I feel like this is a time where I really want to get to know myself. And this is sort of like a very cathartic, getting to know you guys is helping me to get to know myself. And so I feel like I'm learning so much about me through, y'all. So
Yeah, I agree. That's
cool.
the same thing. And to me, I've spent a lifetime with people who don't really get, the whole interior thing that goes on with this big of a stellium in
Yeah.
Aquarius, and I know you guys do.
Yeah.
So that's a
Oh,
good thing.
totally.
So
Oh, yeah,
yeah,
totally.
yeah, and you in particular, because like you got
Yeah.
all the same stuff I
I know.
do,
It's
like
crazy. I
right
know.
and
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
so I don't feel like if I start spouting off a really big idea, I'm gonna be like, oh, there's Dan again.
No.
He's like going off on that tangent again.
Yeah,
You know,
I know. I laughed. I heard that in their interview, another interview where you were saying like that people just kind of brush you off, like, oh, yeah, and I get that too,
yeah, the
all the
Just Joe syndrome. Yeah,
I get it all the time. Yeah, nobody, yeah, there's like,
yeah,
yeah, like kind of like stop. Yeah,
right.
so I keep to myself. I keep inside. I'm in my head. I'm in my head, like nobody I know. I'm
Because
like,
if you talk about it,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
and
Yeah.
we've had a lifetime of that, right?
And it was important for me, and I don't know why, as a kid it was important for me to fit in. And when I would talk about weird things, like kids didn't know what they didn't want to be around me. And so in order to fit in, i I doused my light a little bit. I put myself into a,
Yes, same,
I
same,
conformed. And
same,
I,
same.
yeah, and I find that interesting because they say that Aquarians are not non-conformists, but yet I did conform because I really wanted to fit in. And
Well, we
yet,
want to be social. That's the
yeah,
other side of Aquarius, and that's hard to suit.
right.
It's like you have to learn at a young age when you've got what we have going on. You have to learn at a young age where is it appropriate to talk about this stuff and where is it just not going to do you any good at all. Right?
Yeah.
I had a kid down the street who was 2 years older than me that, but I grew up with, and he used to call me the professor when we were kids.
That's
Yeah.
funny. Yeah.
And the minute I'd start talking about anything, that I was really thinking about, he'd be like, "Okay, professor." Yeah,
Yep.
that kind of thing. So it's you learn,
Yeah.
you get that kind of shutdown because people can't handle what you're talking about. It's so far outside of what's in their heads that forget it. Yeah, it's not
Yeah.
worth it.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
it's so funny because as much as I thought I was like conformed and normal and everything, people would say to me, "Oh God, no, you're not." And I would think that they thought I was normal, like I'm like one of them. And then they'd be like, "Oh no, you're," and I'm thinking to myself, I am toning myself down and they think I'm way out there. I yeah. So
Yeah. You went from way up here down to somewhere around.
yeah, and they still and they it's still they can still see it. So yeah, I'm a
Yeah.
weirdo. What are you gonna do? It's part of I'm embracing it now, or I've embraced it for the most part, most of my adult life. But yeah, really need to allow it to.
Yeah.
Hang on a second.
Sure. All right, folks, intermission.
Oh, you got that?
Yeah, can I give it time? Yeah. Wednesday, I took honor and I have to.
Okay. All right. Cool. I got to pay my worker, so you just gave me a thing.
That's part of being in biz too, right?
Yep, yep. So yeah,
Yeah,
I
I
know
did
it's
a
Friday.
little
It's Friday afternoon.
did a little small, very, very mom and pop computer repair business for about 3 years before I got into teaching IT, and it was too mom and pop, so that's why I wound up going into teaching IT. Yeah, it kind of flopped, but it kind of got me through finding where to be,
Yeah,
out here with, and I don't want to talk too much about the current situation because I'm in the current situation, if you know what I
sure.
mean.
Yep.
But I have a feeling this is kind of getting back to something we were talking about with astrology kind of popping right now in our lives. And I have a feeling that maybe this thing that we're doing with the Ushers of Aquarian Age right now is going to be a little bigger, longer term thing than what we think.
Yeah.
Maybe
I,
I have a sense of
I,
that.
yeah, I'd like to see it. I'd like to see it continue. And it's funny too because I sort of, um, I think I wrote that uh, post out, just kind of putting it out there. Just I had this thought and idea, like based on like you had put out, like who's into poetry. Like you had put a post out, and a bunch of writers and you know artists, and everybody was like writing, and I was like, wow, we should do something. We should do some kind of a you know
Oh, we haven't
collaborative.
even started doing any of the artist
Yeah,
stuff
and I
or
think
any of the big
and I think
idea
that
stuff.
I love the idea. Like, I think it's gonna. I don't think it's gonna come. I think it's gonna come organically. Like, it's just gonna sort of flow. But I love the fact that didn't somebody wrote a children's story and then is looking for a illustrator, and then maybe the two of them can collaborate and then put that up on the channel somehow, or I just or say something about it to give reference to it, or I just feel like you're right. There's going to be that it can kind of go on a little bit longer than just you know what we thought maybe
Oh yeah. Oh
during the
yeah.
Saturn cycle or something
There's a
like that.
huge talent pool that's in that
Yeah,
well.
yeah, amazingly talented people, and so
Yeah.
yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited to continue, and even like so our next meeting, and even if our meeting does not address, like we could address a few thoughts and ideas people have, but I still love the meetings as just getting to know different people who show up,
Right.
in there.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. I've
yeah.
enjoyed those too. I don't think they're really appropriate for the YouTube channel. I think that should be
Thank
like more our private like gathering.
thank
These
you. I agree. I agree with that. Yep.
yeah.
Then
I think
I feel like I could be a little bit more um, candid about things.
right. Yeah, when you're not well,
Not that I'm not. I mean, we're being pretty candid here, but like, there's just yeah, it's just
we don't want the whole world to like buzz out on a large group of super Aquarians. They'll lose it.
exactly when we all get together and talk. It's like I know, and it's great. Andrea keeps us all in check. Like, okay, you got your 2 minutes here. You got your two
Right.
minutes. Oh, it's
Somebody
really
has to.
exactly.
Somebody
Exactly.
has to.
We need that structure. We do. We do
Yeah,
need that
yeah,
structure. So,
exactly.
yep.
Even with the Aries moon, you and I still have that issue too.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Yep. I'm
but I
everywhere.
I have a sense that this is really going to turn into something cool over the long time. I have a gut feeling about it, and I don't, I think we just keep plugging and let it find its own level. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I
Yep.
think that needs to happen. And I think astrology is going to, play into it, but that's not all.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Aquarians are multifaceted. I'd love to see us doing poetry, doing music, but also I want to talk about like big ideas and stuff, like some of the really big dreams, those daydreams I used to have,
Yep.
at some point. But I also don't want to just be like a talking head jabbering about it. I want to do some, I do artwork, and right now I'm under too much of a time crunch to do the background art that I want to do to present those ideas. But I
Right.
want to have like a visual presentation to go along with this so that it doesn't go over people's heads, so they can literally see what I'm talking about. You
Exactly.
know what I
Exactly.
mean?
Yeah.
So I'm kind of holding those things back until I've got the time to put in to do it right. And at some point that'll come along. And then sometime after this pandemic crap is over, I think we should all like do some get-togethers and stuff. I mean, you
That'd
and
be
Zoe
awesome.
are not that far away from me,
Zoe's
and
actually Zoe and I know a lot of the same people. When I became friends with her on Facebook, I'm like, oh, we have some friends in common. And so she used to live in this area where I live now, and so yeah, so we know some people. And there's somebody else in our 1962 group that I actually went and had coffee with one time, and so she lives
right.
in this area as
And
well.
then I think it's Kathleen Hughes. If I'm
Yeah,
getting the first name, we, I believe it's
is up in
Kathleen Hughes,
Portland.
and she's over in Palm Springs. That's only an hour
Oh,
from
okay,
here.
okay,
Yeah,
okay,
so
yep,
that's close by too, and we don't know who's going to pop in the meantime.
yeah,
Yeah, there
yep,
is. So uh, Kathleen and I were talking about this. I hope I'm getting her name right. I can be kind of bad about that sometimes, but there are some really cool things that would make really great day trips out from Palm Springs. The next town over is Palm Desert, and then there's Indian Wells. That's part like almost is part of Palm Desert, but it's its own town, but they're like right on each other. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Like St. Charles and um yeah,
yeah,
yeah, exactly.
yeah,
Or Batavia for that matter.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and at any rate, and so there's some really cool stuff that would make day trips. And there's a nice golf resort over there that would be like a cool place for us to have like a winter gathering or something like that.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so they have about an hour from here or so, there is the Hale Observatory on Mount Palomar, which is operated by Caltech. And that is super cool because you can go up there and see the telescope, and it was built back in the 30s. Those anachronisms we love. It's such cool history, and it
Oh,
was the biggest telescope in the world until the 70s. Yeah, so
is
it's
that
ginormous. It's super cool up there.
where was the telescope that fell?
That was Arecibo in Puerto Rico. That's the
Okay.
radio telescope.
You
That's
know
the
that,
big radio dish.
yeah, that fell during, I think it was I don't know if it was uh it was like a Mars Pluto conjunction or
Yeah. All right.
where something happened.
I'm gonna do. I don't know the astrology side of it, but I know the telescope side of it. Let me do a little screen share here.
Yeah,
All right.
hang on, because I gotta.
All right. I'm gonna have to share the whole screen now. Which one do I want to do? Uh, there, that one. All right. So I'll share that, and then let's go over here and Super Aquarian, and then search. This is the Hale Observatory on Palomar.
Oh,
Okay.
wow. Wow.
And just to give you an idea, so that thing is enormous, right? But it's an optical telescope. It's visual
Oh,
frequency or visual spectrum. What you're
wow.
talking about is Arecibo, which is a radio telescope. It's a big giant dish.
Yeah. That thing was
All
crazy.
right.
Yeah. And it
That is
crashed.
so sad. And
Yeah.
that's in Puerto Rico, right? The Hale is
Yeah.
an hour away from Temecula or Palm Springs, and this is over in Puerto Rico where Yvette is.
Oh, wow.
Yvette's
Yeah.
over there.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you know the date that it crashed?
I know it was like last fall, I want to say.
Right. Yep. Yeah,
But
there was
that's
some big transit going on when it happened. I remember that going like, wow, crazy. I was
yeah.
so blown away by all the predictive astrology that was like coming to fruition was blowing my mind, and I couldn't get away from it. Um, uh, you know, and of course, Cause kept walking by me going, focus. Oh, we got a farm to run here. You can't be.
uh, be nice if they would just show the date, wouldn't it? Yeah,
Yeah.
well, it was in 2020. We know that much.
Yep. 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 Oh, wait.
Yeah.
Here, November 19th, 2020. Is that when
Right.
it did?
That's what I was
Yep.
thinking was in the fall. Okay.
I'll have to check on that. November 19th. I'll look and see. I remember there was something big going on.
Okay. So now there's this other thing that's called the Integratron, and it was built, I want to say, in the 60s by this guy who was trying to talk to aliens, and now they use it to do sound baths. But it's super cool, and that's real
Oh,
near
wow.
Palm Springs. And there's this other thing called Giant Rock, and I've seen a Huell Hauser. I don't know if you've ever heard of Huell Hauser, but he did this PBS show for years and years and years, about three different PBS shows, and one was like California's Gold, and another one is like visiting with Huell Hauser, and they would go all over California and visit all these cool things, and there's hundreds and hundreds of these videos on PBS, and if you Google them on Huell Hauser on Google, you'll find all kinds of YouTube videos, and then there's one of the universities in California that has a bunch of them too, and so that's really cool, and it's right next to a thing called Giant Rock, which is this ginormous rock out in the desert. They're right next to each other, so that would be another day trip. And then I can't remember off the top of my head what the third one was that Kathleen was talking about. We had a discussion, but it would be cool to have, like, like a couple of days or a weekend and go do a couple of day trips and then hang or something like that once
Yeah, that'd
people
be
can.
awesome. That would
Yeah,
be awesome. It's great to dream and think about that stuff in the future because, yeah, this has been and actually, if it was happening now, I wouldn't be able to go anyway because I'm so busy. You too, it's the same thing. But I'm working toward having a little bit more work-life balance. I know that's kind of a cliche term, but I'm really, really trying to figure out how to do that in my life because
right, right.
I love working and I love what I do, but I don't want to, I want to do other things as well. So, you know, at some
Yeah,
point.
one of the things that I miss really is conferences too. I have it like
Yeah.
on my own YouTube channel, and it's called Midwestern Geek in Cali.
Yeah.
Go figure.
I love it. It's great.
And I like to do all kinds of stuff like that. But myself and a friend of mine who runs a local high school sports and news site, and I do a lot of his web work for him, and the two of us would go do like a lot of conventions, like Anime Expo and like Comic Con Revolution up at the Ontario Convention Center in Ontario, California. And we've done a lot of conventions like that. Another one that we've done was Contact in the Desert. That was at the Indian Wells Golf Resort. That's where they hold that every year.
Oh,
And
I've heard of that, I think. I
yeah,
think. Yeah.
it's cool to have like George Nuri, who took over Costa. That he's
The
kind of like
super.
the modern day version of Art Bell,
Yeah.
if you know who Art Bell is.
Mm,
Art Bell was a longtime late night radio show host on AM radio, and he would do all these shows. You would love this stuff. You've got to look up the Art Bell archives and listen to some of his, because you can do it in audio because it was radio,
right.
right? And
Okay, cool.
he would be talking to like Native American elders. He would be talking to people about space aliens
Oh,
and
awesome.
lizard people and everything. All this really what we would consider nowadays fringe stuff
Yeah.
and new age fringe and everything else. And he was talking about all this stuff, and it'd be like 1, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. I used to hear him driving cross country when I was
Is that the
in
coast to coast? Is that was
Coast to
that
Coast AM is like the inheritor of all that Art Bell stuff, but it really grew
okay?
out of what Art Bell was doing,
Okay, cool.
back in the 80s and stuff. And yeah, it's really cool now. So and there's tons of archives of his shows online. So if you're looking for something to listen to that's off the wall, especially late at night, those would be good ones.
Yeah,
Really
yeah.
good ones.
I'll bet. Hey,
Yeah.
Dan, can we pause for a minute or I just gotta go get this. I gotta go get money for him and then I'll be right back. Is that
Sure.
cool?
Go take care of it.
Yeah, let me do that and then I'll be right back.
All right.
Hang on.
Okay, so while Tina's doing that, I'm going to look up a little bit of stuff on the Integratron here. All right, let's get some graphic images. Yeah. Integratron.com. Oh, that's a good one. Right there, that's the Integratron. All right, and here's a little bit about it. And then let's see, let's add Huell Hauser into the mix. And we'll go back over to all. Oh yeah, here we go. California's gold. I'm not gonna play this, but this is Huell Hauser right here, and he's out doing an interview out by the Integratron. This is video. Yeah, back from '01. It's super cool stuff. So that's one of the places we're talking about. Now let's pull up Contact in the Desert. Wait, Giant Rock first, because that's right by the Integratron. And yeah, so giant rock. All right, it literally is a giant rock. All right, and so I'm not going to go too much into that. And then let's pull up Contact in the Desert. Okay, so and that looks like it might be a good image. Okay, so definitely all kinds of alien UFO stuff. Um, and let's go. All right, head over to the blog and then let's look up Contact in the Desert. Yeah, that's George Newry. He's the host of, I think it's Coast to Coast AM. Oh, I thought I had some more pictures on here on this post. Ah, they must all be in there. Okay, so then we'll look up maybe a little bit about Indian Wells. And I'm just kind of flipping through stuff until Tina comes back here. Indian Wells, California, Wikipedia. I think palm trees and hot. Very definitely. City in Riverside County. And this is very close to Palm Springs. Indian Wells is over here in Riverside County, and Temecula is more like over here. Okay, and yeah, that's cool. Okay, I think I hear Tina coming back, so I'm gonna get back over to the Zoom and end the screen share. Oops. Uh, maybe not. Okay. So yeah, Indian Wells is like a really pretty town. So I'm gonna back up a little bit here, and we'll go over to images and just show some pictures from Mountain Indian Wells. It's really pretty. This is out at the golf resort. That's actually on the golf course out there. And then wonder if there's any other cool things out there. I might want to have a look at some point. Explore Indian Wells. Okay. Anyway, so that was kind of fun.
I sorry about that.
Oh, no, 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 no. I've been doing a little side trip on Google while you were
Oh,
taking care of
awesome.
that, so filling in a little bit. So I have to watch the video later for just that part.
Yeah.
Um, and then yeah. Oh no, I didn't share the screen. I just went and did it because I'm recording with OBS, so I don't have to share the screen for that to show up in the recording.
Oh, cool.
Right. Yeah, it's just picking up off my screen. So I was showing the Integratron and Hugh Hauser going out to the Integratron and Giant Rock, and then a little bit I was looking up Contact in the Desert and stuff about Indian Wells. Just some stuff to give people an idea of what we're talking about.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
So anyway, we
Cool.
probably are going to have to wrap it up in a little bit here, though, because I've got to probably start getting ready to head out like a little after 5 to make it
Yeah.
over to Civil Air Patrol and meet my commander for um, a little bit of IT stuff that I've got to do
Cool.
over there. But
And I gotta
yeah,
go plant some seeds.
you do, you
Yeah.
do, while there's still daylight,
I know.
right?
I know. It's
Yeah, this is fun. I think we'll have to do a follow up at some point.
Yeah, definitely. I know there's some things we probably didn't go over, and yeah, I think I find it fascinating because there's so much, there's so many parallels, but yet we kind of took different paths and in different ways. But
Well, I
like you
think you
said,
picked one hobby
um,
to go into, and I picked a different one.
exactly,
You
exactly.
know,
It's
it's
something that's fascinating to me, but it's just I hadn't gone into that route. So
right. I think it's like I and all the stuff that you're talking about is stuff that I've been interested in, and I had daydreams. That must be
yes.
the theme for today, right?
Exactly,
But
daydreamers.
I've had daydreams about doing that kind of stuff, but it's just never it never actually got to be the thing that I focused on, and I don't know how much of that is nature versus nurture. You know
Yeah,
what I mean? I really don't, but um, this is kind of the area that I'm the orange pip, and that's the path I got shot out in.
exactly,
Yeah,
exactly. And my life kind of took different changes through, through
yeah.
the
But
years, but
I find it interesting though that we have like points in our life where big things happened and there were parallels. You
Yes.
know,
Yep.
for instance, the 10-year-old thing, and with
Yep.
aviation, and then the whole moon landing thing. I think that would probably be big for anybody in our
Yeah.
generation.
Well,
How can you not be inspired?
I thought so too, but I've talked to a few people and through my like talked about it really excitedly, and they were like, "Oh, I don't even remember that." And I'm like, "How can you not remember it?"
I went from reading about frontier stuff to reading about sci-fi right after that. I was reading
Yeah.
like all kinds of stuff like Davy Crockett, Wild Bill Cody, and Buffalo Bill and Annie Oakley, and
So you went from the old, all into the past
right.
and into
And then
the
I
future.
completely went sci-fi after that. I mean,
Yeah.
hard science fiction, and I was reading that for years and years and years and years and years. So
Yeah.
like thousands and thousands of sci-fi books.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So
Yep.
there's a lot of that stuff stuffed in here.
Cool. Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, yep. Well, we'll continue. We'll continue this, and I'm so glad. I'm glad we're doing this. I'm glad everybody's kind of on board, and we'll see who else jumps in and out, and we just keep it
Yeah.
going.
I have a feeling it'll switch up a little here and there over time, but we might be the core group. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But be that as it may, things, everything's fluid and stuff, but I think this
Yeah.
is the
Yeah.
coolest
I
thing
think.
ever.
Yeah, I think it's good. I think it's good not to put pressure on ourselves. Everybody seems really busy. I just like, but there's a lot going on in our chart, and
Yeah.
so everybody's really busy, and so it's good to kind of like get the ideas flowing and give us some time to kind of let it all just happen. You know?
I I like the idea of just let it be what it is and be what it turns out to be.
Yeah. Yeah. Me
Because
too.
I think it'll go where it's supposed to go on its own as long as we just roll with it.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yep.
All right.
All
All
right,
right.
Dan.
My
It
aqua
was awesome
sister.
to talk to you, and I'll see you. Yep. I'll see you. We'll see you at the next meeting, whenever that is.
Well, we got to work on getting that scheduled. But that's an off-channel topic.
Okay.
All right.
Got it. All right. Take care.
You too. Bye bye.
Bye.